All right, so we will go ahead and get started. My name is Patrick O'Malley, and I am your host for today. And I want to thank you all for joining and spending part of your day here with us. And for anyone who is new here, I'm going to tell you quickly about ShiftChange and what it is. It's a community platform for clinicians who are wanting to build something beyond the bedside. And this includes physicians, PAs, nurse practitioners, all who are taking decades of clinical experience and turning it into consulting practices, businesses, educational work, which is very timely, what we're going to be talking about today, expert witness careers, and essentially just the second half of their career. And this premise is very simple. You spent years becoming excellent at medicine, and that expertise is worth far more than one patient and one shift at a time. And what we try to do is help you find leverage. And we run sessions like this one every single week. Plus, we have the private community where members are able to trade experience, trade their playbooks, make recommendations, referrals, warm introductions, and really give honest feedback with people who actually get it. And today's session is a perfect example of this. And we're talking about how to take your clinical experience and turn it into a six-figure consulting and academic career. And I've got someone who has actually done it. I want to introduce you to Dr. Christopher Cannell, who is a doctoral trained physician assistant with more than 23 years of clinical experience, and he holds a CAQ in emergency medicine and has experience in orthopedics, critical care, internal medicine, and hospital medicine. So he is going to share a little bit of his experience and how he has gotten to this point. Chris has also been a very valuable ShiftChange member. So if you all are joining, you're going to have direct access to Chris. But as he is going through and talking, I will put his LinkedIn profile and his website in the chat so that y'all can connect directly with him. So Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Patrick. You've been an incredible resource, and I absolutely love this community. Really love the networking, really love the education piece. So, good afternoon, everyone. If you're on the East Coast, or afternoon. If you're not in East Coast, good morning. So today I am going to have a discussion regarding how we can transition, just like Patrick said, sort of you put all that hard work into the beginning portion of your career, all the blood, sweat, and tears in your education, your training, working as a clinician at the bedside, working all hours, weekends, holidays, etc., time away from family. And for me, it was really important, specifically as being a PA. My wife's a PA as well, working in acute care medicine, that I was looking for a way out for me to be more successful, have a higher ceiling, have more flexibility. And for years, I sought ways to do that, and I really struggled trying to find that. And ultimately, I came across a formula that has made me much happier, that works much better financially, flexibility wise. I'm able to sort of be closer with my family now. Work from home a lot. Only work one day clinically a week now, which is fantastic. So I'm going to bring you sort of through that, but we have to sort of discuss the burnout crisis and what exists and why we get to this point. We're going to talk about leveraging your clinical mastery. So use your existing skill set. A lot of times people have this trouble transitioning from the work that they've already done, saying, I can't leave that. I've done all these years of training, I put all this money in my education. Well, this actually extends that. This makes it worth it. You don't have to lose all that. And so we talk about sort of the ability to have like this hybrid model, so that you could work from home, still work clinically perhaps, and there's still options there. And then we talk about how academia works from a tuition exchange program. So how can you pay for your kids for college? I've figured out a way to do that. It's favorable from a tax perspective. And then we're basically talk about ShiftChange community, organic networking, strategic networking. So first part of the process is that we all accept and understand that there's tremendous burnout. Every single provider, nurse, physician, PA, MP, CRNA, etc., we've all experienced anxiety, depression, PTSD, whatever it may be, especially those of us in emergency medicine. You go from doing a code on a patient to a patient complaining about the wait time, or a patient who's intoxicated, or a patient who's been there for the 15th time that week. That all really wears on us. And that's really the reason why a lot of us are at this community, is that it really forms a toll on us. So really that burnout really focuses on moral injury and cognitive degradation. We can lash out at family members. We put ourselves at risk of medical errors and liability exposure. And I'll sort of allude to that and go into that a little bit more detail of how sort of that's my passion project because I've been exposed to so many medical legal consulting events because I've seen what has happened because of operational errors and that may lead to medical malpractice distress syndrome. Um, you know, I know burnout is like this big word that we don't like to use as much anymore, and really want to focus more on wellness. But it really that burnout leads to tremendous problems with our careers, and that full-time clinical grind is no longer sustainable for so many of us. Um, there's tremendous psychological fallout. There's isolation that may occur. In our profession, we actually have higher, especially in emergency medicine, which I saw tremendously during the COVID time as well, is increased depression, increased suicide rates, isolation. Feeling like I know, like many of us who've gone outside of the clinical environment. There's a great world out there beyond that ER environment, that hospital environment that many of us didn't really know existed. And I can tell you, it's just been fabulous to be outside of it, to really prosper in the quietness of what may exist to do work outside of that environment. And then just overshadowing all these decades in that we spent training in education, trying to master our clinical skills. It can be very, very daunting. And when we think about sort of healthcare, and many of us take time before we reach that breaking point, and sort of drive us all out of it. But I want to present here today that none of that time that you've put into your training is lost. You can use that and scale that up into another space. And really this shift change community is that space where so many people are doing so many great things. I'm just here to tell you about sort of what I've done and what I've sort of discovered as a great magic formula, that I believe that many of us can sort of go into without necessarily having to go get increased education, and which I think is a really great strategy. Basically, what are the clinical pitfalls that we have is that the loss of time, the loss of hobbies, the remorse that you have for missing birthdays, holidays, sporting events. For me, that was key. Is that I've spent countless years, missing so many different events, specifically with my wife also working as a hospitalist. It made it very difficult. We were trading shifts back and forth. We wouldn't even see each other. And it's just not sustainable. And then you add in all the operational problems and the pay problems when it comes to healthcare. Over 90% of us are employed by healthcare systems now. It's just made for an unsustainable future for me, and I knew I needed to get out of that full-time grind. I knew that my personal sovereignty was very, very important, and I was tired of working all different types of hours. And really, the solution is not working extra shifts to make extra money. That's not the solution. The W-2 employment is not the way to sort of increase your pay, increase your happiness. In fact, it goes the opposite way. So again, sort of it affects our ability to exercise. I'm a huge endurance athlete, and I absolutely love to exercise. And I found it was really affecting my ability to, really sustain good cortisol levels, and it'll lead to obesity, lack of wellness, bad sleep, and just overall chronic fatigue. Spending, for those of us who are sort of spending some time, extra time documenting at home, it would sort of steal those time away from family, lead to emotional depletion. Again, that secondary trauma, and how that sort of affects your ability to sustain relationships. For us, it was like, not getting invited to friend events or other types of activities. And it's just like, because we just weren't available, never were available because of, the schedule. And God knows how much money I had to pay back in loans for all of my education. And so I think ultimately we come down to like, what's the solution? Well, to me, the solution was to be an entrepreneur. And what that meant for me was, how I sort of fell into it. I got sued, and I thankfully won, but it really opened my eyes to the possibility of this space that I can work in, that I can make really a good amount of money, on my own terms with very little overhead. And I was able to sort of transition from that sort of grind of a clinical schedule, working full time, and over the course of multiple years, really truly trying to hone my practice and really get consistent cases, that I was able to replace that income I was making from from clinical work full time, to now to be able to take that pay cut to work into academia, and then do the medical legal consulting, and then really pare down my clinical shifts, because I wanted to trade off all of the bad aspects of that clinical grind, to that of the future state, which is what I define as the pivot, right? I always tell people that I pivoted. And that leads to true schedule flexibility. Now I can bring my daughter to her Catholic school. I can attend all these sporting events. Yeah, I'm still working every third weekend now, but I'm only working one day a week. It's one 12-hour shift now. And that helps me to maintain my ability to do medical legal consulting, because I'm still working, 50% or part-time. If you really look at it, I'm able to sort of put in a couple other shifts here and there to sort of equal that part-time status, so that I'm being transparent with the attorneys that hire me, because that's ultimately, you have to sort of, for most states, you sort of have to be that sort of 50% academia or clinical practice, or some require 50% clinical practice only. So I'm able to satisfy both areas, checkboxes for the attorneys. And basically now I have a new approach to medicine. Now I'm happier when I am only working one shift a week. I'm more re-engaged with patients. I have more compassion, more empathy, and some of the operational nonsense I have to deal with, it doesn't really wear on me as much. I was able to get away from all the committees I was on, get away from all the administrative work that I was doing, and really just focus on what's important from my career, my family, long term. So, as I said, I love this picture here, because it's like, all right, the focus is on, like, all right, what's the journey? What am I going to do? Um, you know, where can I not waste those clinical skills that I had? Where can I sort of, have this foundation that I've already put so much time and effort into? How can I sort of leverage that into being a subject matter expert? How can I sort of re-engage? How can I sort of move into an entrepreneurial opportunity, so that I can, continue to make good income, so that I can continue to, propel in my career. And I found that sort of this decoupling from the institution, so moving away from that full-time clinical practice, allowed me to sort of think about, all right, how can I sort of expand my work? How can I still pay the bills? How can I still have good benefits? How can I do all those things? And ultimately, I sort of determined that, hmm, I can actually move into academia. Like, I can, like, move into an area that really has greater fulfillment. That I'm training lots of other PAs and executive leaders, and so basically I teach in a program where I have crossover, where I teach in Masters of Healthcare Administration, and Doctors of Executive Leadership, and Doctor of Medical Science program, which is the terminal degree for PAs. So I'm able to sort of teach in all those different areas. And actually, it allows me to actually, if I want, if that academia eligibility is available to me, I can actually get another degree for free, if I wanted to. Ultimately, I'm going to reserve some of that until my kids are out of high school, until I have more time. But those are areas of possibilities I didn't really think about. And I thought, wow, all right. So if I can do this, yeah, I'm going to probably take a pay cut moving into academia. But academia actually is, it's full time, but it actually is flexible full time, and it really allows me to still do all these other things. I'm like, all right, great. This is really, really cool. This is, how am I going to really proceed in this? Well, I found a way, that I can have, you guys don't see me in here, but, like, I have a screen over here, I have a screen over here. I have an office I have a separate office that I go to, that I rent, that I'm able to deduct from my taxes. I was able to find a way. And I found that, hey, if I'm my own boss, in my own entrepreneur space, then I can sort of scale up my opportunity because I now have this non-rigid schedule where like, yeah, so my education is actually asynchronous and online. So it's really, really, truly flexible except for my faculty meetings I have to attend. But everything else, I can grade at 2 o'clock in the morning if I wanted to. If I wanted to take a trip to Europe, I can grade from there as long as I have Wi-Fi. As long as I can meet with meetings. Not all academic arrangements are that way, but there are opportunities that may exist that you can actually build your prestige, get into research, and actually help build your other brand, which is your entrepreneurial area. And medical legal consulting is sort of my passion, but you can sort of utilize that and build upon that for other passions you may have. I'm just providing sort of the example within this presentation of sort of what I've done. And I've been able to successfully navigate that to, again, have that over six-figure income just from the consulting alone, and be able to sort of keep it pretty consistent doing that. So basically, just moving beyond that one-on-one care, to me, I felt like was the right strategy, and I felt like it was able to sort of get me out of that clinical grind. And really, medical legal consulting is really that really true high-paying area that I don't think a lot of us knew existed or does exist. There's other areas as well. I mean, there's so many different areas of medical legal consulting. Many people think it's just expert work, and it's actually not true. There's many different areas. When it comes to like healthcare fraud, when it comes to personal injury, forensic work, utilization review. There's all these life care planning. There's all these different areas of medical legal consulting that are available to you. And a lot of it you just do as long as you have an internet connection and a computer. So, from all of this, I thought, all right, this is where this entrepreneurial spirit came into be. I started in 2017 and I've really just blossomed from there. Where before it was like sort of a smaller portion of my income, but as more and more I put time and effort into it, did lots of education in that area, I realized there was tremendous opportunity there. Um, so like, there's medical legal consulting. A lot of people sort of think about it as going against a colleague if you do on the plaintiff side, or it's not really good, valuable work. And I would argue that it actually is. You contribute to risk mitigation. You're improving medicine by working on quality and safety. We all acknowledge that the medical malpractice system is broken. And I don't have this overwhelming thought that I'm going to somehow fix it myself. However, I do believe that we can contribute heavily to it and improve it for everybody because I bring my work back to my clinical space and I tell all my colleagues about, without, providing any patient identifiers about my cases. And so we all benefit from it. We all talk about the biases that exist, the operational problems that exist, some of the peer review processes that are less than ideal. And sort of as you go through this, we learn from each other, and it really helps to my colleagues to help mitigate risk. So I do believe it's a very helpful process to be involved in. And I've actually used that to leverage myself into the academia world where I'm able to teach about it. And so for a lot of you, you may not necessarily know all the sort of details of a medical malpractice suit or sort of what the framework is. But ultimately it's meant to help to, theoretically meant to help to deter unsafe practices, compensate injured parties, exact corrective justice, and improve patient systems. Unfortunately, private equity has gotten involved into malpractice cases, and there's a lot of back and forth that may occur between the defense firms, the insurance, the plaintiffs firms, and that's why most cases don't necessarily go to trial. But the process in itself is just absolutely fascinating, and it's a really fun process to go through. There's very little attorneys that I've ever worked with that have not been just fantastic human beings to work with. I even sit through depositions sometimes, and I have tremendous respect for the attorneys on the other side that are deposing me, because I feel like they do great work and they have great questions and they're very respectful to me. And so I find the process just absolutely fascinating. Just sort of breaking down sort of what medical malpractice is or what a medical negligence claim is. You have to prove all four, right? You have to prove that the provider had a duty to care, that there was a breach in duty, that there's true causation, that the actual event led to a specific breach in the standard of care and led to injury, and then did the damages then lead to an injury? And that injury can be that of physical, emotional, financial. And so that's the role of an expert, right? So an expert witness sort of comments on the standard of care. It's really the attorney that has to prove that there's been has to meet all four criteria, and your job is to sort of focus on the standard of care. Now, you can be a causation expert as well, specifically physicians. Not all PAs can do causation work, but physicians absolutely can. And that sort of causation work sort of factors into your decision making, and depends on what specialty you're in, is that you can start getting a little bit more into the weeds regarding that causation and contribute to that sort of economic component to it as well with the attorney work. So that's another aspect of that medical legal consulting that you can perform that sort of extends that work for you. Okay, so again, the standard of care is really what you focus on in medical legal work. Again, that consists of the expert witness testimony that we talked about. Every state has different laws, like for example, like the Daubert laws that sort of affect expert witness work, or and different regulations of what the expert witness may do. Like meaning, like in, for example, like in New York State, they don't necessarily have to disclose your name or any of your credentials. They just basically disclose that that they have an expert and that they're able to sort of comment on the standard of care, and they present some expert reports. But when you're doing the expert work, really the focus is on policies and procedures, clinical practice guidelines, and state guidelines, that sort of thing. So all those are really, really key, and that's why being able to review the research, to really accurately break down papers, to really look at all the administrative components of the delivery of care, and how that may impact. So is there vicarious liability involved? Is there, is it not just the clinician, right? So oftentimes we think about like medical malpractice lawsuits as like just the clinician. It's actually not true. Sometimes there's like entities like doing business as, so like the group might get sued, or the institution, or like the medical director. There's all those different layers to it. It all depends on the situation. But that's really ultimately your job as a medical legal expert, is you're able to sort of break that down, because no one really knows that work unless you're inside of it, right? Like, unless you're doing the actual work and you understand the delivery of healthcare and the operations of healthcare. Attorneys just don't know that. You have this knowledge that they're seeking, just like they have knowledge that you don't know about from a legal perspective, but they value your input. And that comes at a very lucrative ability to sort of earn income when you're able to do that. So basically, most cases don't go to trial, right? So I've done, I think almost close to 70 cases at this point in time, and I haven't been to trial once, because every single trial gets booked and then they get canceled because they end up settling or they get dismissed. So it's been any one of those scenarios. So we're ultimately seeing. I think it's going to start becoming less and less. That 5% is exists now. I think it's going to start becoming less, because it just becomes so expensive to perform a trial, that ultimately may not end up going to trial. But a lot of the times, and I can sort of I talk about this sort of a little bit at the end, as well as some of my education courses, is that's why you gear your rate sheets to reflect that, because you're taking time off of clinical practice. You didn't book a kid's sporting event, or you made flight plans, hotel plans that may or may not be reimbursable, all those types of things. So that's why it's important that you write a lot of these things into your contract. But ultimately, it goes through this funnel, and there's the discovery phase. There's the phase for which they're reviewing all the documents, they're submitting their complaints, they're reviewing the complaints. There's a lot of back and forth. There's obtaining information from the facility, from a policies and procedure standpoint. So there's a lot of work that goes in between it, and a lot of time that exists with the work of meeting with experts, to getting expert reports, to doing affidavit of merits. Like, all this stuff takes time. I mean, ultimately, most of these, like I said, either get dismissed or settled. So this is really basically the deposition crucible, sort of what happens in a deposition. And not all cases sort of you're required to provide a deposition, which is really a sworn testimony. So it just really goes over into a little bit more details about that. Really the ultimate multiplier, in my opinion, of what I've seen is that really the expert witness really drives the case. You can get a really good expert who really does an incredible job that can really, depending on the plaintiff side or the defense side, that can really change the trajectory of the case. So your subject matter expertise is tremendously valued. So not just your deposition, but also like the actual defense expert. I mean, sorry, the defense, the parties who are getting sued, their depositions matter as well. Another aspect of medical legal consulting is coaching. You're seeing a lot of people who have had success in space who actually are starting to work with coaching of actual providers who are actually on the defense side. So there's so many different layers of work that you can do. Um, and so ultimately, again, most of these will, if they reach to this point within a case, a lot of them will end in a payout because of the costs that may involve. The unfortunate part about that is that it's on your record. If someone is getting sued, they end up having it on their record, gets reported to the National Practitioner Data Bank, and it can affect your ability from a medical staff privileges standpoint, from even doing work yourself as a medical legal expert. So that's why this process is so important. So again, the multiplier, how we sort of view this is um, when you're doing this work, when you're transitioning to possible academia, is that I would always say is that I'm only affecting one patient at a time. I'm not really making a difference in emergency medicine. Whereas like you have when you work as a subject matter expert, when you're working as an entrepreneur in this space, it's a significant multiplier. Is that you have such an exponential impact. And then and then you're still doing, if you're still doing clinical work, which you probably should if you're doing this type of work, is that you're really contributing to that really authenticity and the quadruple aim. Um, so ultimately, like, I've found that, for me, I was able to transition to this space where so now I have faculty status. So I'm teaching at two different doctorate programs. I made a decision before I even got into that in order to leverage myself to have that opportunity to be eligible to teach at the doctorate level. I became faculty at in two master's programs where I did years and years of clinical precepting of PA students, and that helped me to elevate my role both as a medical legal consultant, but also to get into teaching for a doctorate program. And so now I've been able to leverage all those years of blood, sweat, and tears of clinical work, apply all the knowledge I've gained through my advanced credentialing as a medical professional legal consultant, and then all that I've learned at being a medical legal consultant into now teaching at the doctorate level, where I'm teaching again, I'm leveraging also my administrative experience in like healthcare law courses. And then I'm leverage it into like an AI ethics course, into a doctoral seminar course. So all of these things you can then leverage into it again without necessarily having to spend extra money. I can tell you the medical professional legal consulting course was not that much money, and I really felt like it's been a significant contribution to my ability to obtain work. And ultimately, all of this has led to a tremendous increase in my income with a better lifestyle, and I'm much happier. And I'm able to exercise more, be more present for my family. I've spent more constructive time with my kids, teaching my son how to drive now. I'm able to help pay. I have a son in college. I'm able to pay for him, and I'm going to talk about my other two kids about how leading into academia works. But before I get into that, I wanted to sort of talk about sort of the medical legal consulting that there's, again, when I mentioned before, there's much more to that work as well, because when you gain that knowledge, you start being able to understand the different types of liability that exist. And then you can start talk about like getting into like risk management. And so like corporate liability, especially if you have a lot of administrative experience as a medical director, you can start looking into corporate liability and consulting in those spaces, because there's a medical legal vibe to that. And then again, you can do all that work on your own, establish your own LLC. As long as you sort of maintain a business associate agreement and that you maintain HIPAA and you maintain that you have protected health information and you go about the appropriate way to manage all that information, which I sort of talk about a little bit later, you're going to really put yourself up for success within this space. And so, I established my work as a single member LLC. I was able to establish an EIN number, work with my financial advisor, work with a business accountant who works with small businesses, help sort of protect my assets and really develop a good futuristic plan for both myself, my family, and really factor into that my new academic work as well. And so I'm able to sort of work ahead of time to sort of think about how I'm going to apply all of that within my business account when it comes to like estimated taxes and really focus on ways I can improve my income by having my kids help work for me within my medical legal consulting. So I'm able to pay them as employees, which then helps to go into a separate account, which then actually helps to pay for their Catholic school. And so at a pre-tax rate. So I'm able to lower my tax threshold by doing it that way, and they're able to do work that's applicable to them within my space. Doing what you would think is regular administrative work. And so you can work on all different types of tax write-offs. So I travel from my home office to my other office. I'm able to write that off for mileage perspective with the existing mileage laws with the IRS. I'm able to deduct a new phone. So I just had to get a new phone recently because my other phone crapped the bed. I'm able to deduct that. Just had my AC fixed in my home. I'm able to deduct that because I have a home office. So you really focus on ways that you can work on write-offs and how all of a sudden stuff that would come off the top portion of your income because from a tax perspective, all of a sudden you're lowering your tax threshold and you have an increased income at the same time. So it really, this country is built upon being an entrepreneur and being a small business owner. For me, I'd be able to use Augusto, which is a service I pay for my payroll. There's other ways. There's other ones out there like QuickBooks or Bill.com, Airbase web expenses. I have my own CRM. I use Zoho for all of my billing, and I'm able to connect that to my business account. I use a Google Workspace, and which is where I have a signed business associate agreement. So I have all like Gemini within that space. I'm able to use a platform called Hippetizer, which helps with all of my patient protected health information and keep everything HIPAA compliant. So, all right. So now we sort of move into the academic side of things. We're going to start telling you about why this is such a no-brainer move. So for those of you who have children and you're really scared about how you're going to pay for college, um, you know, this is really a success. So basically I'm part of this tuition exchange program as being a university professor. So I'm able to potentially send my kids to school as long as they get into free. So the institution that I work at, they as long as they can get into the school, they can go there for free. And then part of a shared program where there's over 700 schools across the country that are part of this tuition exchange program. As long as they participate in it and your kid qualifies, they can also go to that school for free. And there's different caveats with different schools. They have to sort of accept that. But it's a real program that's very effective. And so this sort of talks about sort of lowering your tax burden. So if you think about 400 grand that you're making before taxes, and all of a sudden you're able to clear 250,000 because you're getting your kids going to school for free, it just becomes a no-brainer. And then you have this flexible lifestyle. You have all these other benefits. Like, I have 3 weeks off in August. I mean, in Christmas time, I have time off in May. I have time off in August. And all of that could sort of adds to say maybe I want to increase clinical shifts during those times, so I can sort of again increase that to that 50% threshold. Or if you just want to take time off and work on your entrepreneurial work, I can. So there's tremendous benefits to academia. Um, and it just really helps from a wealth standpoint. Again, these top tier universities are, my son's school is now just topped over $80,000 a year, and he has to take out all these private loans. And I can't help him right now because he's not at a school that's part of the tuition exchange program, and he was already at the program. He's just going into his senior year before I started. So, it becomes difficult. But now my other two kids are really going to tremendously benefit from it. And they understand that they're going to be going to schools within this tuition exchange program. So again, you have to be when you're working in clinical medicine, you have to be physically present to, and it's a very rigid, non-flexible lifestyle. Whereas, like, you work in academia, there's a different way to approach it, where you don't necessarily you can be, virtual in a lot of these cases, or you may not necessarily be virtual. It could be live in person, but there could be a lot of flexible ways to approach it. And everybody has different scenarios. Where that works for them. But absolutely, when you think about this, when you look at the cost advantage here, it just becomes unbelievable when you're having the ability to now pay for your kids for college, and even though you might take a little bit of a pay cut doing academia, the benefits just far exceed the risks of doing that beyond clinical medicine. So again, we started to talk about the role of a clinical contractor is it maybe you decide to then now go into locums work, or you can be, a lot of people go into like surgical first assisting, for example, or the different ways to actually improve it beyond that. And then you can also put that within your own LLC, beyond just being tied to one institution. So again, to me, the true benefit is the flexibility and not having this rigid hours that you have to go by, and that you then basically develop your own self as a subject matter expert, where you can design systems better. You have all these different areas where you can go in. Again, medical legal consulting is just part of it. There are so many different areas. Say you want to design something, there's a great ER physician within the ShiftChange community who created a nasal clip, who that really stops epistaxis and really helps to treat that. And there's all different avenues for entrepreneurship. Medical legal consulting is just one avenue, but to me, going into academia allows that flexibility and time that you can commit that, and adds to your subject matter expertise, and really helps to leverage other opportunities when you work in academia. Again, 600 over 670 plus institutions to about 700, ranges from year to year, but it's absolutely a true benefit within this tuition exchange program that exists within the institution that I teach at, in addition to my full-time salary. Again, just sort of another sort of slide that really talks about sort of the pre-tax benefit to it, the tuition exchange benefit to it. If you really think about it, you can then the money that you would not then be adding to your child's 529 plan, you can actually add to your own. Say you want to do your own Roth plan, or you want to do your own entrepreneur retirement account. So beyond that of a 403(b) that you may do with your clinical space or with your academic institution, you can do that. And then just think about how the market has gone over the last couple of years, how much of that exponential increase will occur because of that. So, what I really want to sort of talk about, I want to leave a lot of time for questions, is, embrace the grind. Like, so unfortunately, to get to this point, as sort of Patrick alluded to, it takes a lot of years to get to this point. Like, I wasn't able to get to this point until I was, 21, 22 years into my career. Now I'm 23 years in my career. Now I've really been able to make the difference within the last year and a half or so. But I had to build my medical legal consulting work for a bunch of those years to get to this point, so that I could step back on my clinical space, so I could take that pay cut to go to academia and still make more money and still have more flexible time. So it just became a tremendous opportunity because of that. So use your clinical years, build this undeniable foundation to direct patient care and medical mastery. Doesn't necessarily need to take 20 years. It could be 10 years, for example. But think about an area that you're passionate about. Think about an area that you could leverage. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be medical legal consulting. And then pivot to education. Think about the different types of spaces that you could pivot to, that you can go into academia, and just the incredible asset of tuition exchange. And then unlock specialized lucrative specialties like, again, medical legal tech. You can build your own product. I just got a phone call from another attorney right now, it looks like, which is great. But just whatever it may be, just to build your work as an LLC. A lot of people do, like, pharmaceutical speaking, which is a really, really great area to get involved with. And then you can leverage your academia in that space. But I don't think people think there's so much outside of clinical medicine that you can do, and still being able to embrace all of the work that you've done to that point. But ultimately, the goal is to achieve ultimate autonomy, to build the six-figure income and restore that work-life harmony. So build your consulting firm. Think about these cogs in the wheel. I mean, I've spent years and years and years grinding, and to get to this point. And my hope is that by who's ever watching this lecture today and this webinar sort of is able to get to that space sooner than I did. So that you're able to have that realization to sort of do what, like, Patrick's doing and other people are doing, to really get into a space where they're able to take time off from clinical medicine, go to part-time medicine, or leave medicine altogether, but leverage those skills that you have, so that that you can get back that life that you've always wanted, that we in medicine have missed so much of.
And Chris, let me just interject real quick here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
For the other people who are on this call, if you could just drop in the chat how many years you have been practicing. And I think what you're talking about is very, very powerful. If you just have completed residency, that's not really the time to build something else. I think it's important for you to be aware of that, and you can start planting some seeds and identifying, like I put in the chat, kind of finding and developing your niche, whatever your area of interest was. Like for me, it was laceration management. So I created
Right.
this laceration course, and that was something that I really enjoyed and really loved. And then lo and behold, it became my exit strategy and my way out of full-time emergency medicine work for a little while that continued to grow. So I think for all of you, who are here, attending the webinar, start thinking about something that really brings you joy, and then really honing in on that. If you're wanting to leverage the medical training, your medical experience, your professional experience, and just identifying that. And I'm happy to jump on a call with anybody and help you do that. Because I think, and Avia, you and I talked earlier this week, and I think so many of us just have this mindset of, I can't do anything else. And well, if you pull back the curtain or you speak to somebody who has that experience, you'll quickly see that, man, there's so many opportunities. You're going to have a hard time finding what it is that you want to do, because there are so many opportunities that are available to you. Our expertise as physicians, PAs, and nurse practitioners is very valuable. And a lot of people will pay you for that insight and expertise, but it's not going to fall in your lap. You have got to get out there. You have to connect. You have to have conversations, and you have to make yourself available so that you can have those types of discussions to figure out what it is that you want to do. But it is 1000% doable, and there are so many opportunities that are available to us. And that's my soapbox. Back to you.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue to the rest of the lecture, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that the grind is there. Like, you have to put that work in. But I totally agree. Play that, and that's really the purpose of this talk. Is if you're fresh out of residency, or you're early in your career, as a PA, MP, whatever it may be, plant those seeds. Start thinking about what's next. Start thinking about sort of what you're passionate about. Start building, start raising your hand, getting on, different types of committees. Start raising your hand because you got to unfortunately put the volunteer work in. You got to put the time in, and you got to continue to put that time in to leverage all that expertise. Establish yourself as a subject matter expert. Establish your authority. Just it takes time to sort of figure that out, but you only do that through organic networking. Because if you do that, you're going to find that there's ways that you could exponentially increase, what it is that you're going to do. Like sometimes it's just throwing darts at a dartboard and trying to figure out what sticks, what you will be successful at. Sometimes it's just that one person that you speak to out of the hundreds that sort of leads you there, or whatever webinar or lecture that you attend. It just sometimes it just falls in your lap. Like for me that's what happened with medical legal consulting. It even took time for me to embrace it myself to determine if this was the next step of where I wanted to take it. And finally, after a lot of sort of failed attempts at being an entrepreneur in different areas where thoughts that I had, I really embraced it and really focused on it. Um, and so, just again, start building ways that you can think about different revenue streams. Your clinical work should not be your only revenue stream. Think about building that. Think about securing your family's future, about building different revenue streams so where it comes from different areas. So say something happens to you physically that you could still work in these different areas, and you want to develop that. It really serves as good insurance for yourself. And then, the junior clinicians, earlier career clinicians, you will find that this will be the areas of success you can get involved in. There's a lot of you can do biotech and research and work, and that will help leverage yourself to sort of get yourself within those spaces as well, which oftentimes do provide this higher level ceiling for you than that of clinical medicine. Um, medical legal consulting, you can command, pretty high rates, for what we charge, much higher than actual clinical rates. So really you want to think about that. And then in other different areas as well, you can start really charging a much higher rate than you would be from a clinical perspective. Because you're in, just like Patrick said, you're in demand. Your knowledge is in demand and how you want to proceed. Um, Start building that organic networking. Start really be authentic in who you reach out to. Offer your time. Always offer your time. And be cordial and understanding and patient because others may not necessarily be where you are. Maybe you want to be where others are. You never know. So I think it's really, really important that you build that internal directory because you never know where it's going to lead for you for opportunities. And then sort of build up your own personal CRM and rely upon that because you never know where it's going to sort of take you to the next step. So just, the power of networking is real. This ShiftChange community is that, right? I mean, so, the amount of education, the amount of subject matter experts that come and speak in Patrick's ShiftChange community is just enormous. And there are tremendous opportunities within this space that you say you don't know what you want to do. For me, it's been medical consulting, but for you, it might be different. Well, this is space for it, right? So I found LinkedIn can be this black box space for a lot of people. But if you really get into a special niche community of what ShiftChange is, this is really specific to us, right? Like this is very specific to who we are, and what we've done with our training. And there are so many different spaces within this community that really you can help build your entrepreneur spirit, and really focus on that next step in your career. Um, and those connections will compound themselves. And just unfortunately, there's no quick fixes. That's what the grind is, right? It's purposeful time that you spend building this over a period of time so that you can actually get to a space where you can say to yourself, I'm content, I'm happy, I'm where I want to be. So that for me it took a long time to do, but it also took a long time for me to realize. I don't think a lot of these resources, I know a lot of these resources didn't exist 10, 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago. But now they do. And especially when so many of us are being employed as W-2 employees within these institutions now where we have less say, we have less ability to control our schedules. I think it's really, really important that you have more control over your professional career. for me, it was sort of just what I just alluded to. And it's the what I call it basically the triple threat here, which is the academia, which is the clinical work, and the entrepreneurship. So this is my website. I do all different types of work within my website. And just both ultimately, my final message to you guys is just a little bit of my contact information is start thinking about next steps for yourself if you're not already there, or if you are there, just better ways to refine it. And don't just be another cog in the wheel, sort of be in charge of your own ceiling, and start reclaiming your hours, start reclaiming your life. That's my LinkedIn profile. For I have a wait list right now. I'm still refining my masterclass. Been so busy with academia transition that I'm sort of not done with it yet, but I do have a wait list for the medical legal consulting masterclass. I will be offering a 10% discount to all ShiftChange members for the course. And so once it goes up for sale, I will we'll have a code that we can send to all ShiftChange members so they can get 10% off the course.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing that, Chris.
Of course. I will stop sharing if I can figure
All
out.
right. Well, we're gonna make this like trauma surgery rounds, Avi, for your benefit. Let's put some people on the hot seat. What do y'all think about this approach? You know, Avi, trauma surgeon, 14 years, Josh, ER, 20 years. Where do you guys sit with all of this stuff and kind of looking for the next chapter?
I'll go ahead. First things first, want to say thanks for that incredible insight. I think one of the things that I've noticed really quickly with my first introduction to shift change is that I'm not alone, that there's a ton of ER physicians and providers that are in a similar situation. If I rewound, even 5 or 10 years to think I would be in the headspace I'm in now, I would have told you there's no chance that that's going to happen. But it kind of comes up on you quickly, and it's just good to know that there's other folks out there feeling, the same way. So
Yeah.
that was really eye opening, and I do appreciate all of the insight that you're providing, and the talk was really excellent. For me, I think the issue is kind of speaks to what you were saying. I'm struggling to find my lane. I'm taking every meeting. I'm dabbling in a little of this, a little of that. I've become a medical director of a PA program in Philadelphia at St. Joe's University.
Awesome.
I took an AI course through Harvard Medical School, and that sort of churned my interest in learning how to build on Claude Code. And there's so many obviously avenues to take, and I think I'm in the situation where I'm committed to making the jump. I just have to find the lane that works best for me.
And dude, that's 1000% spot on. One, you are not alone. There are so many people who are in the same boat. And there's a gentleman that Chris and I both know, Lon Stroshine, who I did an 8-month cohort coaching class with, and he wrote a book called The Trade. And I'm going to get his LinkedIn profile, and I think you would benefit from listening to his book or reading it if you're a reader. I'm much more of an auditory learner, but here is Lon's profile. I would encourage you to follow him and just start seeing what he's doing. Check out his podcast, his book. It's $10. Audiobook, it's like 3.5 hours. But there are so many people like us, mid-career disillusionment. We've worked so hard, you get to this point, and then you've painted yourself in a box. And you're like, everybody else wants to be in this box, but I don't like this box anymore. How do I get out of this box? And it's slow, intentional acknowledgement and work to making the life that you want. And you have the capability to do this. So in my journey, it's required a lot of investment. And if you watch this little masterclass that I've got inside of ShiftChange, the word investment, there's 2 letters right in the middle of it. Me, M-E. And when you start investing in yourself, that is when things start to change. Chris, I don't know about you, but I've had to invest in coaches, consultants to help me understand things that I don't understand. And I think that we've got a tendency as healthcare folks, one, we're skeptical. Two, we're, notoriously a little bit on the stingy side. But when I started investing in coaches and experts who could help me, man, the barriers just they disappeared. So I also want to encourage everybody to not be afraid of investing in yourself. That is why you have worked for the last 14 or 20 years. You've got reserves. And it doesn't mean that you need to write a check for $100,000 to somebody, but little bits here and there are well worth the investment. Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, even for those who may not necessarily want to make the commitments, sometimes like you can have these free sessions with coaches, or
Yeah.
there are so many different resources out there where I've done so many self-help. I mean, I can't tell you how many self-help books I've listened to on podcasts. And I will agree with Patrick that probably the best self-help book that helped me in my whole entire life was Lon's book.
Yeah.
The book spoke to me more than any other book I've ever read. Because and I don't know if it just was timing for me, but it gave me the internal power to sort of really step up my game, to really have put a name to it, to really have an understanding to it. So there are many different resources that are out there that are free, and there are
Yeah.
a lot of coaches out there that will spend some time working with you, and you get some ideas here and there. But I think eventually, when you build up some income, you can decide, right, now I'm going to invest in it. Sort of like what Patrick's done, is that where you've sort of here and there, you actually build over time, and you realize that, hey, I do need to invest in this. I do need to do this. So I do think that's it's part of that intentional journey.
And yeah, 100%. And one thing I'd like to add, inside of Shift Change, every month we've got what we refer to as Coach's Corner. And inside the community, Rob Orman, who you guys might be familiar with, he is a coach that I worked with, and critical care, emergency medicine education with Hippo, and is now a certified coach. So Rob is in the community, Lon is in the community, Lillian Emlett, who's an emergency medicine critical care physician, she's in the community. Elsa Arendt, who really specializes in women in burnout. Um, Trying to think, Luann Giangreco. So we've got about 4 or 5 certified coaches inside of Shift Change who I can say genuinely want to help you. And they will do coaching corners where you can come in, you can just listen, or you can ask questions. They will all do a free consult call with you. All right. And we've already got them identified. They're already in there, and I'll connect you with every single one of them. So great resource. But coaching, I think, has been an underutilized concept for us as physicians. And if I could go back 20 years, I would have been working with a coach for the last 20 years.
Oh yeah.
Like every quarter, I've got a coaching call. Small investment, it would have prevented so many self-induced injuries that I created for myself with administration, just getting out of my own damn way. And if I had had a coach early on, that would have been a lifesaver and a game changer for me. So really encourage you to, if you are struggling with these types of things, to reach out to a coach and just have a conversation.
Totally agree.
So I put in the profile here, or in the chat, Lon's, Chris's information. Lon's website is right there. The Trade is just an amazing book, and I encourage everybody to take a listen to it. But yeah, anybody else got any questions, comments, feedback?
Again, just thank you both for the
I had a quick.
opportunity.
Absolutely,
Oh,
Josh.
sorry,
You're
Josh. I didn't mean to
welcome.
cut you off.
Nice to meet you, Josh.
I had a question for Chris. In terms of the medical legal space, like it's something I actually did a little bit of work just for a favor of a friend many years ago. And so I got a little taste of it. I don't know that I necessarily like or don't like it, but I've had a background in quality and safety on my, doing my day job thing. So it kind of overlaps a little bit with some stuff I've done. But, where do you even start to like build the education and knowledge for myself to even begin doing something like that? That's, I guess, where my holdup right now is. And I'm on the same timeline as Josh. Maybe he's not done quite as many things as he's done to sort of get to that next step. Like I've made the decision. I know I need to make a change, and I've not really invested. I've just made a big life change in moving across the country and sort of trying to set up my news chapter. But what I'm struggling with now is one, figuring out what the opportunities are, which things like this really help. But then even once I've identified a potential opportunity, where do I begin? Like I know very little to anything about this process. Where would I start?
Yeah, so say you want to get in like quality and safety, certainly getting more involved, like volunteering with your from a medical staff standpoint, just learning the processes more from an administrative standpoint, so that you can start building that subject matter expertise. There's you can advance your education, you can teach to get a little bit more notoriety. But there's a course that I took as a medical professional legal consultant, which sort of, it's not just specific to expert consulting, but it just goes over all different types of spaces. But you might need to sort of spend some time, over the course of a couple of years, sort of, a master's in healthcare administration or something where you're
Yeah.
establishing yourself more. Again, it's like this slow, intentional process. So like if you identify that, hey, like that's a space I want to get more involved in, there's different types of certifications and credentialing with the American College of Healthcare Executives and Certified Professional Healthcare Safety and Quality. So there's all different types of areas you can get involved in certifications and credentials. It just depends on how much time you have, how much money you want to spend, and in the ability to volunteer. So,
And for the medical legal part specifically, like you said, there's a course that you took or courses that are available to just understand sort of the framework from where to begin.
yeah. So there's a course that I took. Again, it was more broad medical legal consulting, but
Hmm.
when I started doing medical professional legal consulting, I didn't get a credential. I just started doing it because attorneys had confidence in me after, like I said, unfortunately, I got sued and I won. They had confidence in me as an expert that I could do work for them, and it just
Right.
slowly built from there. So for I'm building a master class so I can teach others how to do the work. There's other people within this community. Dr. Fogelman is another one. She's an internist within this community. She also has like a master class that teaches how to sort of do it from a business standpoint. There's all different types of resources out there.
So many.
Yeah, so many. It just unfortunately it's time and effort. But people like myself and
Yeah.
and Dr. Fogelman, we sort of have created these courses to really help it and refine it for people to make it more specific to expert work.
Yeah. And Amy did an office
I
hours.
appreciate
Chris,
it. Thank
you were
you.
on that, I think, weren't
I
you?
was, yeah.
Yeah, and she did, and she kind of went through some of the different things. It's not just showing up in a courtroom. I think, what is it? Only 10% of cases or 5% of cases actually go to courtroom litigation. It's all the other steps that are involved with it. And I think she mentioned some of the other opportunities with like the life planning,
Yeah.
working with insurance companies. And she's got, I think it's called High Rock Experts is the name of her program. And Chris, as soon as you get your program up and going, please, please, please let us know, so that people can, be aware of that. Because I'm assuming that yours, even though it's the APC consultant, your course is going to be applicable to physicians as well.
Correct. Yeah, it's not,
Right.
originally when I started my firm and my work, it was more focused on that, but no, yeah, the expert work is not specific to being a PA or MP. It's specific to all providers.
Yeah.
Just another point to you, Avi, is there's no substitute for the warm handoff. I've noticed that that's my opportunity that I got as the medical director came from teaching in one place and then someone hearing about me and introducing me to someone at St. Joe's, and one thing led to another. So you have to leverage your Rolodex, your contact list, and I know that the warm handoff is really the best way to step forward.
It is. And I if I were to go back in my sent email folders, I've probably got over 1,000 emails that I have sent, which are just warm introduction or introduction. It is so important. And, Chris touched on this, building your network, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a long process. This is another thing that we talk about inside of ShiftChange in this little masterclass is never delete a phone number, never delete an email. You never know. Like, for instance, 13 years ago, my wife and I, we created a breast pump light called Lactolite. and a gentleman that I was introduced to 10 years ago to help me with the molding and the manufacturing over in China. We got it done. Everything was fine. I hadn't spoken to him in 10 years. He and I recently reconnected. He's now inside of ShiftChange, and he is a logistical supply chain medical device guru. And he's interested in doing some content now for ShiftChange. I've referred a couple people over to him. He's referred a couple people over to me and with ShiftChange. And the importance of connecting, making connections, networking, showing up on LinkedIn. It is probably the most important skill set. And if you think about it, who better to do this than an ER doc? We have to call people at 3 a.m. and ask them to do something that they do not want to do. We do a damn good job of that. And it is a skill set. Now, it doesn't mean that you're trying to call somebody and get something out of them every time. There's another principle, and I'm actually doing a book club tonight on the book called The Go-Giver. Really trying to reframe your approach with networking and connecting. I refer to it now as net weaving instead of networking. You're really trying to build this tapestry, this intertwined, thread, of all the threads that we have and all the connections, and being on the lookout for, hey, well, I just talked to Josh. Okay, well, he's now at a PA school. Ooh, I've got somebody who might benefit from connecting to Josh. And hey, Josh, I've got 3 leads that I think are going to be helpful for you, and sharing those. So really going into new interactions and relationships with people with the mindset of what can I do to support them? What value can I bring them instead of what am I going to get out of them? And it's so foreign to us in medicine because our job is to take care of patients, do the right thing, and by damn if I'm going to have to go above and beyond to be the nice guy and give this hospitalist who's giving me shit all the time, I'm going to get what I need and I'm going to move on. So in this entrepreneurial space, it's really a different paradigm that we're operating from. Chris, do you have any, does that
I totally
resonate?
agree.
Yeah.
It just, never look at it as what you can get out of it. Just look at what you can give to those relationships, because it will just organically happen because of your being vulnerable and being authentic in all your interactions.
And I tell you what, man, I've got chill bumps again just thinking about that. It is such a more rewarding way to live when you are going into every interaction with what can I do for you instead of what can I get out of you. It really it kind of trickles down into your home life and with your spouse and your kids and other, with your friends and stuff like that. So
it's a different mindset. We have to again pivot. I like to use the word pivot a lot. We have to pivot from what we've been sort of trained in medicine, and it's just a different mindset, and it's a great world out there beyond working in that hospital. I can tell you that.
It really is. It's a lot of fun. And I can tell you this, both to Avi and Josh, I am here to help you in any way that I possibly can. So look forward to having another call with Josh. I think we're talking next week. And Avi, whenever you want to jump on another call, man, just let me know.
Thank you guys again. Really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Agree. Thank you so much.
Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up. And Chris, thank you for sharing your expertise. And you guys connect with Chris on LinkedIn as well inside of ShiftChange if and when y'all join. But we're here to help you in any way we can.
Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.